The house was quiet, too quiet for a marriage that once pulsed with laughter and late-night confessions. Emily sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the faint glow beneath the closed study door. Daniel had been in there for nearly an hour, speaking in hushed tones on the phone. She couldn't make out the words, but the pauses, those lingering, intimate pauses, spoke volumes. Her chest tightened. It wasn't the call itself that unsettled her. It was the secrecy, the sudden need for distance in a home that had never known walls. Their vows once felt unshakable, a fortress. Now it seemed that fortress had cracks spreading in silence. She rose and padded softly down the hall. The carpet muffled her steps, but the creak of the floorboard outside the study betrayed her. The voice inside stopped. Silence pressed against the door like a living thing. "Daniel?" she called softly, trying to sound casual. The door opened a moment later. Daniel stepped out, phone still in hand. His smile was quick, practiced. "Work. Just a late call with one of the clients." Emily nodded, though his eyes darted away. "At this hour?" He shrugged, pressing a kiss against her temple, a gesture that once warmed her but now felt rehearsed. "Deadlines don't wait. You know how it is." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to cling to the version of her husband who held her hand during storms, who whispered promises into her ear as though forever was carved in stone. But the air between them had shifted. She felt it in her bones. Back in the bedroom, Emily lay awake staring at the ceiling while Daniel slid into bed beside her. His back turned almost instantly. The rhythmic glow of his phone screen flickered in the darkness. She closed her eyes, willing sleep to come, but every vibration from his device echoed like thunder in her chest. The night stretched endlessly, heavy with silence. By morning, Daniel was gone before sunrise, leaving only a scribbled note on the kitchen counter. "Don't wait up for me tonight." Big day at work. Emily traced the ink with her fingertip. His handwriting was steady, but her own hands trembled. Something was shifting, something she couldn't name yet, but could feel wrapping around her like a shadow. For the first time in their marriage, Emily realized she no longer trusted the quiet, and that was when dread began to take root. Morning light spilled into the kitchen, but Emily's world felt dimmer with each passing day. Daniel's note from the night before still sat on the counter, and though his words promised work obligations, her mind whispered something darker. She found his phone left on the table, an unusual carelessness for him. For years they'd shared everything, passcodes, bank accounts, secrets that once felt sacred. When she pressed the screen, her stomach knotted. A new password prompt glared back at her. Her hand froze. "Why change it?" she whispered to the empty room. As if mocking her, the phone buzzed. A notification lit up the screen. "Can't stop. Thinking about last night. Miss you already." No name, just a number she didn't recognize. Her breath hitched. Heat rose in her chest, pulsing with equal parts rage and disbelief. She picked up the phone, staring at it as though willing the truth to reveal itself. But the screen went dark, leaving her alone with the echo of suspicion. When Daniel came home later that evening, she confronted him in the hallway. "Why is your phone locked?" she asked, voice trembling. He slipped his jacket off casually as if her question were nothing more than a passing irritation. "Security. Work's cracking down on client data. Nothing to worry about." "And the message?" Her tone sharpened. "Who sent it?" Daniel's eyes flickered just for a second before he let out a dry laugh. "Emily, you're imagining things. You always overthink. It was probably spam." Her throat tightened. "Spam doesn't say it misses you." He stepped closer, his voice low and measured, as if explaining to a child. "You need to stop looking for problems where there aren't any. You're tired, that's all." Gaslight. The word echoed in her mind, though she barely admitted it to herself. His dismissal stung more than the message. That night, Emily lay, awake again, the glow of his phone flashing against the darkened wall. Every vibration sent a shiver through her. She turned away, clutching the sheets to her chest, trying to silence the storm inside her. But deep down, she knew. Trust had shifted into something brittle, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. And tomorrow, The new scent would confirm her worst fears. Emily folded Daniel's shirt into the laundry basket, her fingers pausing halfway. A sharp, unfamiliar scent clung to the fabric. Floral, heady, and intoxicating. Not her perfume. Not anything she owned. The sweetness turned acrid in her chest as realization spread like poison. She lifted the collar closer to her face, inhaling again, unwilling to believe what her instincts already screamed. The scent was too strong, too intimate, as though someone had pressed against him close enough to leave a trace. Her heart pounded when she heard his footsteps in the hall. She stuffed the shirt into the basket just as Daniel entered the room. "You're home early?" she said, forcing a smile. "Meeting wrapped quicker than I thought." He loosened his tie, his movements easy, too easy. Emily hesitated before asking, "Who wears perfume like that? I noticed it on your shirt." Daniel's brow furrowed for the briefest second before smoothing into indifference. "Oh, that one of the women from the office must have brushed past me. You know how crowded those meetings can get." Her throat tightened. It wasn't faint. It was strong. He let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "Emily, you're reading into things. Again. You've been so tense lately. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's just in your head." The words sliced deeper than the perfume. In her head. That phrase had become his favorite shield. "I know what I smelled," she whispered. He stepped closer, his voice soft, almost tender. "Do you trust me or not?" The question lingered, heavy and suffocating. She wanted to scream that trust wasn't a weapon to be turned against her, but instead she swallowed the ache. "Of course," she murmured, though the words burned her tongue. Later that night, when Daniel slept soundly beside her, Emily lay wide awake. The perfume lingered in her memory like a ghost, each breath reminding her of the invisible woman, pressing herself into their marriage. She clutched the pillow, trying to reason, trying to silence the gnawing voice that told her she wasn't imagining things. But Daniel's dismissal had burrowed deep. Was she losing herself? Or was he expertly unraveling her sanity, one lie at a time? The sheets between them felt like a chasm. His body turned away, his phone glowing faintly on the nightstand. And somewhere out there, she knew, the woman behind the perfume had a name. The perfume haunted her thoughts for days, gnawing at the edges of her sanity. Emily tried to dismiss it, to believe Daniel's polished reassurances, but the weight of suspicion pressed heavier with every passing hour. She needed proof, something undeniable. It came unexpectedly. While sorting through their shared laptop, she noticed Daniel had forgotten to log out of his work email. Curiosity and dread warred within her, but her trembling fingers clicked anyway. Her eyes widened as a string of messages appeared, not from clients, not from colleagues. The subject lines read like whispers of betrayal. "Last night was perfect. I miss your touch already. Can't wait until we're alone again." The sender's name seared itself into her vision. Claire. Emily's stomach lurched. Each message bled intimacy, recounting stolen hours in hotel rooms, promises whispered in the dark, secret moments stolen from the life she thought was theirs alone. She read until her vision blurred with tears, until every keystroke burned like salt in an open wound. A knock at the door startled her. It was Anna, a mutual friend, stopping by to drop off a borrowed book. They exchanged polite words, but Emily's mind was elsewhere. Then, almost carelessly, Anna said, "I saw Daniel the other night. He looked happy. He wasn't alone." Emily's heart dropped. She tried to keep her voice steady. "Who was he with?" Anna hesitated, eyes flickering with discomfort. "I didn't want to interfere, but I think her name was Claire." The name echoed like a gunshot. The confirmation stung more than the emails. Anna left, unaware of the storm she'd unleashed, while Emily stood frozen in the doorway, betrayal cutting through her like glass. When Daniel came home later, Emily studied him with new eyes. Every word, every gesture felt rehearsed, fraudulent. She didn't confront him, not yet. Fury surged within her, but heartbreak tangled with it, pulling her into a dangerous silence. She poured herself a glass of wine, her fingers trembling as she watched him laugh at some meaningless television show. His laughter sounded hollow now, corrupted by the echo of Claire's name. Emily realized something had shifted. She was no longer the woman desperately clinging to trust. Now she was a wife with knowledge too heavy to bear, a woman sharpened by betrayal, ready to dig deeper into the shadows. And soon those shadows would lead her face to face with the truth she feared most. Emily's hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel, following Daniel's car through the evening streets. The city lights blurred past her, each one reflecting her racing heartbeat. She had no clear plan, only the gnawing need to see the truth with her own eyes. Daniel's taillights flickered ahead, weaving confidently through traffic until he turned off toward a quiet hotel on the edge of town. Emily slowed, her breath catching as she parked at a distance. She waited, the silence inside her car screaming louder than the city noise. Then she saw it. Daniel stepped out, straightening his jacket, his expression softened in a way she hadn't seen in months. A moment later, Claire emerged from another car, her smile wide, her hand brushing Daniel's arm with careless familiarity. Emily's chest caved in. This was no business meeting, no misunderstanding. This was betrayal unfolding. In real time, her door flew open before she could stop herself. The cold air slapped her skin as she stormed toward them, rage propelling her forward. "Daniel!" Her voice cracked through the night. Both turned, startled. Daniel's face drained of color, while Claire instinctively stepped back. "Emily," Daniel began, his voice a strained whisper. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" Her laugh was sharp, broken. "What are you doing here, with her?" Claire opened her mouth, but Daniel lifted a hand, silencing her. His eyes locked onto Emily's, wide with panic, but also laced with something she couldn't name. Defiance. "It's not what it looks like," he said quickly. Emily's chest heaved. "Don't insult me. I've read the emails, I've smelled her perfume on you, and now—" She gestured wildly toward Claire, tears spilling. "You dare stand here and lie to me?" Daniel's shoulders sagged. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Then he spoke, his words soft but slicing. "Fine, I won't lie. Yes, Emily, I love her." The words hit harder than a blow. She stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat. "Love? It's not about lust," he said, his voice steadier now, as though confession freed him. "With Claire, I feel alive again. Something I've lost with us." Emily shook her head, choking on fury. "And you thought destroying our marriage was the way to find yourself?" His eyes flickered, almost guilty, almost resolute. "I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't pretend anymore." Claire stood silently, a shadow hovering behind him, her presence like a knife twisting deeper into Emily's chest. Emily's world tilted. The life she built, the love she gave, had become a battlefield, littered with lies and half-truths. Betrayal wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was undeniable, standing in front of her hand in hand with another woman. And in that moment, fury hardened into something darker. Not just pain, not just heartbreak, but the first dangerous spark. Revenge. The night after the hotel confrontation, Emily sat alone at the kitchen table, the house drowning in silence. Daniel had gone to bed without a word, as though their world hadn't shattered hours earlier. She traced the rim of her wine glass, her thoughts sharpening into something she hadn't felt before. Resolve. For years, she had been the loyal wife, the silent supporter. Now betrayal burned through her veins, leaving behind something colder. She would not beg. She would not crumble. Instead, she would make him pay. The next morning, she greeted Daniel with a forced calm. She set his coffee down with a smile so polished it almost fooled her own reflection in the window. "About last night," she began softly. "I overreacted. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear the truth." Daniel studied her, cautious, searching for cracks in her tone. "You mean you accept it?" Emily tilted her head, her lips curling into the faintest smile. "I mean, I understand. People change. But we don't have to throw everything away, do we?" Relief washed across his face, a flicker of guilt buried beneath it. He reached for her hand. "Emily, I never wanted to hurt you." She let his touch linger, though it chilled her skin. Inside, her mind whirred. He believed her performance. That gave her time. In the days that followed, Emily played her part flawlessly. She laughed at his jokes, cooked his favorite meals, even brushed his arm as though intimacy still bound them. Daniel, comforted by the illusion, loosened his guard. But beneath the surface, Emily was unraveling. Each smile she forced twisted her deeper into obsession. She began cataloging his lies, the late nights, the hushed phone calls, the lingering scent of Claire. She kept a notebook hidden in her dresser, recording every detail like evidence in private trial. At night, while Daniel slept soundly, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She rehearsed conversations, imagined scenarios, plotted outcomes. The thought of reclaiming power pulsed through her veins like a dark lullaby. Daniel had underestimated her, she realized. He saw only the forgiving wife, blind to the storm he had unleashed within her. The marriage had become a theater of masks, his painted with false remorse, hers with feigned forgiveness. But behind the curtain, Emily's resolve grew sharper, her obsession darker. And soon someone else would notice the fractures behind their polished facade, someone who would start asking questions neither of them were ready to answer. Detective Harris wasn't supposed to be involved, not yet. But a phone call, anonymous and urgent, landed on his desk late one evening. The voice on the other end was calm, almost detached, warning that something dangerous was unfolding behind the closed doors of Daniel and Emily Walker's marriage. The tipster never gave a name, only this: "If you don't watch closely, someone's going to end up dead." Harris had heard plenty of empty threats in his career, but something about the tone, quiet, deliberate, gnawed at him. He opened a new file, scribbling their names in black ink, underlining the word domestic. Meanwhile, Emily continued her performance at home. She moved like an actress on a stage, masking her bitterness behind carefully chosen smiles. Her eyes hollow even as she spoke soft words of reconciliation. Daniel, relieved, leaned into the illusion, blind to the quiet storm swirling in her mind. But Harris began watching. First, it was background checks. Daniel's business records, Emily's medical history, the couple's financial strain. Nothing criminal, not yet, but tension simmered like water ready to boil over. One evening, parked down the street in his unmarked car, Harris observed the Walker's house. Through the kitchen window he saw them. Daniel laughing, Emily leaning, close, her hand brushing his arm. On the surface, they looked like any couple trying to mend, but Harris knew better. He had seen too many marriages rot from the inside out. Behind that smile, Emily's obsession was deepening. Her nights were restless, haunted by betrayal, her days consumed by rehearsed patience. The gap between her outer mask and inner chaos grew wider each hour. Harris couldn't yet intervene. There was no crime to justify it. But instinct told him the storm wasn't far. Emily, unaware of the detective's quiet surveillance, stared at Daniel across the dinner table. In her mind, she no longer saw a husband. She saw a liar, a thief of her years, a man who had traded vows for secrets. Her resolve crystallized. If Daniel thought she would be the passive wife forever, he was mistaken. And while Emily sharpened her intent, Harris was already circling their lives, a shadow waiting for the first fatal crack to reveal itself. The storm had been building for weeks. Emily had carried her secret rage like a flame cupped in her palms, feeding it with every lie Daniel told, every glance he stole at his phone, every mention of late meetings that were never really meetings. That night, the flame roared. Dinner sat cold on the table. Emily watched Daniel from across the room, her eyes fixed on the man who had once been her entire world. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled, but there was no exhaustion in his face, only the faint smile of someone who lived two lives. "Daniel," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through the silence. He looked up. "What is it now?" She rose, holding herself steady. "I want you to say her name." His expression faltered. "Emily, say it." Her hands trembled. "Claire, admit you've chosen her over me." He exhaled heavily, dragging a hand across his face. "You're obsessed. I told you, I didn't mean to hurt you. But yes, I love her. She gives me what you can't anymore." The words carved her open. "What I can't." Her voice broke, rising into a scream. "I gave you everything, Daniel. My years, my body, my soul, and you throw it away for her?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "You suffocate me, Emily. You cling." "Claire lets me breathe. Why can't you just accept that?" Her heart hammered violently, vision blurring with tears. "Accept being discarded? Accept being replaced?" He stepped closer, lowering his tone. "You're twisting this. You always twist everything. You're making yourself crazy." Gaslight. Again. The word burned in her skull. Emily's rage spilled over. She shoved him hard in the chest. He stumbled back, then caught her wrists in a bruising grip. "Stop it," he barked. "Let me go," she shrieked, struggling, nails digging into his skin. In the struggle, her hand shot out, grasping the nearest object, the heavy glass wine decanter from the table. She swung without thought, the motion fueled by blind fury and heartbreak. The sharp crack of glass meeting skull shattered the room. Daniel collapsed, a strangled gasp escaping as crimson bloomed across the floor. Emily froze, the decanter slipping from her grip, shattering beside him. The silence afterward was unbearable, punctuated only by her ragged breathing. She knelt beside his motionless body, pressing trembling fingers to his neck. A faint pulse fluttered, weak and uneven. Relief and terror collided in her chest. Her hands, sticky with blood, hovered above him. The enormity of what she'd done crashed over her. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was violence. This was irreversible. And as the blood spread, Emily knew nothing in their marriage or her life would ever be the same. Outside, in the quiet street, a car engine idled. Detective Harris sat in the shadows watching the house, unaware of the fatal turn already unfolding within. The morning after the violent outburst, Emily scrubbed the kitchen floor, her hands raw, the coppery scent of blood still clinging to her memory. Daniel was alive but weak, confined to the bedroom with a bandaged head and excuses ready for anyone who might ask. Emily told herself she had bought time, but she knew time was no ally. It was a noose tightening with every breath. Detective. Harris, meanwhile, dug deeper. The anonymous tip that had sparked his curiosity now seemed prophetic. Searching through Daniel's private belongings obtained via a quiet warrant, Harris uncovered a bundle of handwritten letters tucked inside a desk drawer at the office. They weren't business memos. They were love letters. "Claire, every moment. Away from you feels like a prison. Emily doesn't understand me, not like you. Soon we won't have to hide." The words painted a portrait of devotion, far darker and more intimate than any casual fling. Harris read through each one, the handwriting consistent, the affection undeniable. This wasn't an affair of impulse. It was an affair of choice. Back at the Walker house, Harris knocked on the door, his badge gleaming in the morning light. Emily greeted him, her palms damp, her smile brittle. "Mrs. Walker, I need to ask you a few questions," he said calmly. "It won't take long." She led him inside, the weight of his presence pressing down on every corner of the home. "Has your husband been acting differently recently?" Harris asked, his voice neutral. Emily clasped her hands together, nails digging into her skin. "He's been stressed. Work, deadlines, you know how it is." "Do you know a woman named Claire?" Her breath hitched, but she forced her expression still. "No. Should I?" Harris watched her carefully. "Your husband seems fond of her." "I've seen the letters." Emily's heart plummeted, yet she held her mask. "Letters? Daniel's always been dramatic. Maybe you've misunderstood." But Harris saw it, the flicker in her eyes, the tremor in her voice. The lies she stitched together were unraveling thread by thread. "Mrs. Walker," he said slowly, "if something's happening in this marriage that I should know about, now is the time to be honest." Emily forced a smile, though her hands shook in her lap. "Detective, you're chasing shadows. Daniel and I, we're fine." The words left her lips brittle and hollow. And though Harris nodded politely, he left with the unmistakable certainty that the truth was clawing its way to the surface. The courtroom was suffocating, every eye fixed on Emily as she sat at the defendant's table. The fluorescent lights hummed above her, but the sound was drowned by the pounding of her heart. She wore a dark dress, her hair pinned back, the mask of composure hiding the chaos roiling beneath. Daniel sat across the room, his head still bandaged from that fateful night. His once charming features looked hardened now, his gaze cold and unrelenting. To the jury, he appeared the victim, a husband betrayed not only by his wife's violence but also by her refusal to admit the truth. Judge Morgan entered, commanding, "Silence. Court is now in session." The prosecution wasted no time. They called Claire to the stand. Emily's stomach twisted as Claire walked with confidence, her perfume faint but unmistakable. The very scent that had shattered Emily's trust now filled the courtroom like poison. "Miss Claire Hamilton," the prosecutor began, "can you describe your relationship with Mr. Walker?" Claire's eyes flickered toward Daniel before settling on the jury. "We were in love. Daniel told me his marriage was over, that he stayed with Emily out of obligation, not devotion." Gasps rippled through the room. Emily gripped the edge of the table, nails biting into wood. The prosecutor leaned closer. "Were you aware of the letters?" Claire nodded, her voice soft but steady. "Yes, he wrote me often. He wanted us to build a future together." The bundle of letters was presented, their words read aloud. Daniel's declarations of passion, his promises to leave Emily. Each sentence cut deeper, stripping away Emily's carefully woven lies. When it was the defense's turn, Emily's attorney urged her to take the stand. Trembling, she rose, the weight of the room pressing down like chains. "Mrs. Walker," her lawyer began gently, "can you explain what happened that night?" Emily's lips parted, her voice quivering. "I never meant to hurt him. I was angry. Yes, angry at the lies, the betrayal. But I didn't plan to strike him. It was a moment of blind rage." The prosecutor pounced. "A moment of rage fueled by months of suspicion, jealousy, and obsession, isn't that right? You weren't just a scorned wife. You were unstable." Emily's mask began to crack. She shook her head, tears spilling, but the words stuck in her throat. The jury's eyes bore into her, searching for truth beneath her fractured exterior. In that moment, the marriage was no longer private. Every hidden sin, every whispered betrayal, every shadowed lie was now public record. Love had twisted into evidence, intimacy into ammunition. The gavel struck, echoing like thunder. "Court will resume tomorrow," the judge declared. Emily sank back into her chair, hollow, broken. The trial was far from over, but already the cost of truth weighed heavier than she could bear. And as the courtroom emptied, she realized justice would not heal her wounds. It would only decide her fate. Morning returned the courthouse to its ritual hum, but the air felt heavier than yesterday's. Emily sat rigid at the defense table, wrists folded, eyes fixed on the grain of wood as if answers lived in its lines. The mask she'd worn through. Testimony had thinned. Beneath it, exhaustion pulsed like a bruise. Daniel entered with Claire a few rows back, his bandage smaller, his stare colder. Cameras clicked. Detective Harris stood near the aisle, arms crossed, watchful. Judge Morgan took the bench. "Members of the jury, have you reached a verdict?" A foreman rose. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of aggravated assault. With a deadly weapon, we find the defendant, Emily Walker, guilty." The room exhaled and then hushed. Emily did not cry. She inhaled and kept her gaze forward. Claire's perfume drifted, faint like a fading memory. Sentencing followed after a recess. The judge's voice was steady. "This court acknowledges the context of infidelity, manipulation, and emotional injury. But violence begets consequence. I sentence you to 4 years incarceration, with eligibility for parole after 18 months, and mandatory counseling." A gavel cracked. The sound felt final. Emily's attorney squeezed her shoulder. She nodded, numb. Across the well, Daniel avoided her eyes. The press would say justice prevailed. No face looked victorious. Sponsors withdrew from Daniel's firm. Clients wary of headlines. His phone, once a secret lifeline, now burned with reporters' numbers. Claire slipped out a side door, flanked by whispers. Love letters that once felt holy now read like evidence. Devotion had curdled into spectacle. She pressed a hand to her chest, realizing too late love can be a weapon. Harris lingered, studying the fragments. A marriage hollowed by secrets. A woman cornered by gaslight and pride. A man alive but diminished by the truth he helped create. He thought of the call, calm, deliberate, untraceable. Justice had spoken, but fate still sounded human. He noted a pattern in the letter's dates, aligning with unexplained withdrawals, a secondary trail he intended to follow. Soon, quietly. In the holding corridor, Emily paused as the deputy guided her. She glanced at a window where daylight cut a thin blade across the floor. "Tell Harris," she whispered to her lawyer, "to keep the file open." A beat. The tipster knew too much. Back outside, Daniel faced a crush of microphones, his answers clipped. The words healing and closure fluttered uselessly in the noise. Inside the transport van, Emily closed her eyes. Love, lies, vengeance, each exacted a toll, and she had paid in full. Yet beneath the wreckage, something steadier remained. The clarity of truth and the cost it always demands, for everyone involved.